2020 Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meeting. Jamie, can we start with a roll call?
Tim Gary.
Here.
Present.
Terry Steenblack.
Here.
Jason Steenblack.
Here.
Doug Ramseth.
Here.
Tim Miller.
Here.
Karen Moorhead.
Here.
Betty Guy.
Here.
Okay, and then we need an approval for the agenda, but I think we need to make an adjustment. So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the agenda, but we remove 5A and 5B and hold those over to the next meeting.
What are those?
5A is the meeting minutes from April 21st, and 5B is the meeting minutes from our special meeting on May 5th.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jamie, I'll let you.
Okay. Terry Steenblack.
Aye.
Jason Steenblack.
Aye.
Doug Ramseth.
Aye.
Tim Miller.
Aye.
Tim Gary.
Aye.
Karen Moorhead.
Aye.
Betty Geyer.
Aye.
All right, and I don't know, I didn't see any emails, at least for the open forum. Do you have anything, Jamie, for the open forum part?
No, I did not receive anything here from the city.
Okay. All right, so then it looks like we can move on to the regular agenda, which would be 5C would be first on the list, which is the arts in the park.
All right, so I'm gonna get to the screen share here in just a second so we can kind of all be looking at the same thing. I know it's tricky to not have the documents in front of you. So you should be able to see now my screen here. And I'll just kind of go through a couple things and then really just look at opening it up to the Parks Commission. I know this is a tough one and there's, many things to consider, but I'll just go through a little background. So at our last meeting, which we called a special meeting on Tuesday, May 5th, the sole purpose of that meeting was to talk about and make a determination for arts in the park. That was as a result of some feedback from City Council and some additional updates from Governor Walz. So we had that meeting and Parks Commission did approve to postpone arts in the park in the month of June and said we would kind of revisit at this meeting to see what our next steps are for July and August, given that we just did have another update from Governor Walz just recently. So with that, I provided a lot of information. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read through that. I really just wanted to highlight where we're at today, because I think if we look, tomorrow's gonna look different, next week's gonna look different. So this is really based off of where we are today. And we said we would look at what we'll know here on May 19th. So with that said, just briefly, we all know Governor Walz did not extend the stay-at-home orders, so that was lifted just as of yesterday. The state of Minnesota was no longer under the stay-at-home order. However, that executive order that was issued did still prohibit groups of more than 10 people from the different households. So that's our current executive order from the state of Minnesota. There's obviously, like someone had mentioned, there's a lot of language with that, but that's one of the key things that we're at right now today on May 19th. I highlighted here what that means for gatherings. So it calls out in the executive order things that are prohibited right now on May 19th, include things like the sporting and athletic events, performances, concerts, and anything that really brings more than 10 people together. So with that, I also just thought it was important to highlight one of the other emergency executive orders that was issued on May 13th that talks about protecting the rights and health of high-risk populations, just kind of listing that, 65 and older, pre-existing health conditions. I think that, that's important to keep in mind. That's an executive order right now. We really still need to think about how do we, protect those certain populations especially. I wanted to highlight what the CDC is telling us right now. And so they have some guidance out there for people like us trying to figure out what we do with a large group event. So I bullet pointed some of the items they talk about. Really, some of the factors are how many people do you have? How long of a space are you how long are you gonna be together? Talks about the level of transmission in your community at the time. And they do say it's, if there's ways to reduce the number of attendees is something they would recommend. So I did highlight their recommendation that says cancel community-wide gatherings or move to smaller gatherings. Just a quick Minnesota Department of Health report. As of May 15th, I just pulled a chart from the website kind of showing where we're at here in the state of Minnesota. We are close, over 15,000 cases now of COVID-19, with a peak expected sometime in late June or July. So that's still something that we have on the forefront, or what they're expecting. I just thought it was interesting to kind of note, looking at the community spread piece of this, there is some element of community spread in Minnesota, some unknown. So there's just that element there. So those are the three kind of areas I focused on, is what we look at as we're just making decisions on having a large event in Forest Lake. Just briefly, I'm sure you've been following along with the updates, but Governor Walz is explaining things using different dials. So these aren't necessarily where our dials are today. This is just the picture I could find to at least have that conversation. For example, social gatherings, the dial has been turned to small family gatherings. So 10 people or less is allowed right now. They have not turned to places of worship and sporting venues. However, I do know there's an important update tomorrow, I believe, on how they're going to recommend we move forward with sporting events. So as you'll see, the driving factor here is sporting venues and concerts are the last turn of the dial for the social gatherings. Those are larger and less predictable settings. So right now, like I said, we're at 10 people or less is what's allowed per the state. Other community events, I know this was a question last time, so I put some notes down of some surrounding communities in Washington County, what they're doing or what they've done. I've seen a lot of summer events just canceled altogether. And these are events that bring hundreds or thousands of people together. So this is just to kind of give you an idea. I did want to note that Market Fest did postpone their event, but they're just doing about 6 weeks, I believe it was, late July and into August. So a very, very short program. So just lastly, what does this mean for us and our event, and how do we move forward from here? I think it's hard to predict anything right now, and we don't know if we'll be in this current executive order with 10 people or less for another week, another month, the rest of summer, and we don't know what that next step in guidance is going to be from the state level. So, I think it's really tough to know how to move forward, and I think even if we were given the green light from the state, what is that going to look like for us to hold a big event? Is it going to be restrictions? Is it going to be setting up the park for a more predictable environment? We just don't know what some of those restrictions and guidelines may be. So, I think it's, given the current situation, it just seems as if for the city to put on a large event may be pretty difficult this summer, unfortunately. And Governor Walz is saying, instead of stay home Minnesota, it's stay safe Minnesota. So I think the question for you tonight is, I have a recommendation to bring forward, but really, even though a state home order is lifted, I think it's important to still consider, safety factors in this process. So with that, I'm happy to, I guess my staff recommendation, after much thought and consideration, is to, unfortunately, I think it's a tough decision, but, I recommend that we cancel July and August of Arts in the Park, and that would include the concert series vendors and food trucks. We can still have the farmer's market, which I'll talk about more later in the meeting. But I don't think we cancel summer. And I think it's important that we develop a contingency plan on other programs, activities, or events that we can offer safely in July and August, and discuss that at our next meeting. So looking at smaller group events or at multiple parks, for example, where we can put some plans in place for something that we know that can happen versus kind of waiting to see what's next from what's allowed at the state level. So with that, happy to take any questions. It's open for discussion, but I think we need to kind of take our next step in how we're going to move forward, and just wanted to put forward at least a recommendation for consideration. So with that, open it up to the Parks Commission.
Jamie, can you stop sharing so we can see the bigger, there you go, thank you.
Yep.
Any comments or
Here,
questions?
yeah, I have comments and I'm probably going to be at the end of the block on this one, but I haven't given up hope and I haven't worn off this summer. I also am in one of those age categories that you're all supposed to be worrying about and taking care of. And to me, if I had any of those problems, I wouldn't be going to Arts in the Park if I was any fearful of it. But healthy people like everyone else would probably go to the park. I just still think it's a little early. They're changing by the minute. Like you said, more pressure is becoming apparent to do more. Minnesota has done its best for a while, but I think there's a lot of pressure now to say there might be another avenue to go. And I know it takes a lot to set up these things, so it's not something you can say on Thursday yes and Friday no, that kind of thing. So that is a little problem, but I would not be in favor at this time of canceling July and August. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone, if you do want to speak, you can kind of wave your hand and let me know and I can call on you guys.
Did Tim Miller have his hand waved before?
That was redirecting kids.
Oh, okay.
I know that a little too well. Tim Gary, Commissioner Gary.
I guess that, a couple thoughts. One, maybe we curtail vendors or downsize things, but I'm still kind of interested in the music part of it. Where the musicians have really been out of work for a couple of months. If we could maybe double up like 5 to 7, 7 to 9. And, whether we do wristbands, red bands for 5 to 7 and blue bands for 7 to 9 or something like that to keep the crowds controllable. Maybe you have a couple of food trucks, so there's a little bit of food and a little bit of music. Maybe you don't call it Arts in the Park. Maybe it's, Fun in the Forest or whatever it is. But because I think we've done a great job of doing Arts in the Park. But I would hate to see, the large gatherings we've got be curtailed down to, 250 people or something like that, and then people aren't having fun. But I think it's important to keep things going. It seems that, we have a lot of communities around us that are curtailing their activities, and I think being proactive but wise would be a benefit to Forest Lake.
Go ahead. Terry.
I agree that I think we should look for some alternative options and proactively plan some other events, but I have concerns going against CDC recommendations and the state of Minnesota Department of Health recommendations. Even if the Department of Health were to move their dial because of pressure, I don't think it necessarily means CDC would move that. And I know it's a really, really difficult decision, but I think the longer we prolong making the decision, the longer it's going to be before we can proactively think of some new and different ways. I kind of equate it to like the spring fling, right? We waited, and I know it's very different, but we waited we talked over the course of several meetings about the Easter egg hunt and do we do the Easter egg hunt? And, you know, we talked through some of the issues there and we decided to pull the plug on that. And until we decided to pull the plug, we couldn't think about new and different ways to offer something. And I think that once we pulled the plug on it, we came up with something that was well received and was a good community event. So I feel strongly, like Jamie said, I don't think summer's over, but I think we can't move forward in trying to think differently and what we could do until we make a decision here.
And what decision are you looking for?
Well, the staff memo is cancel the remainder of Arts and Parks for July and August, and which includes the concert series, and then develop a contingency plan on other programs. So taking some time between now and June 16th to brainstorm some other things that could be done.
So would you maybe set aside the term Arts in the Park and then come up with, say, again, just pick up Fun in the Forest, and now you have maybe a modified, so you maybe have 1 or 2 trucks and maybe have some music, you know, so you've got something to do on a summer evening. I think that, you know, if there are people that are, you know, over 65 and are, you know, aware or fearful of catching, you know, they're going to stay away. But I don't think we should jeopardize people who are 5 and 17 and 27 and 43. You know, they still have the ability to get out, and they're not, you know, by statistics, they're not in danger, you know. So I think that we should still provide something within the framework of what the CDC and you know, Governor Walz is proposing.
Yeah, I don't know what it would look like right now because I haven't had time to think about it, but I think I would be uncomfortable making a recommendation that goes against the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health. So I am all for doing some things. I don't know what they are right now because I haven't had an opportunity to think about it, but
I'm at a little disadvantage because I don't have an ability to raise my hand. So excuse me if I jump in.
You're excused.
But
And
it's
then we'll go to Tim Miller next after you.
okay. I just think we're back to Terry, and I'll certainly be there trying to think my mind off to come up with something else. But the sprinkling, like she said, was quite a bit different. We didn't have anyone telling us how many and where we could do and what we could do and how we could do it. And I think no matter what, the guidelines seem to be going slow enough that I can't imagine, unless we're going to be a little bit more brave, to have people come that are healthy. And I know there can be caring, you know, we've heard it for 2.5 months now, what we should know and do, but that we have some ability of keeping some spacing and allowing some people who really want to come out on a nice evening and enjoy our city. So while I'll still be against this motion, I will be very much in favor of providing something. And I tell you, if it doesn't change with the state and the CDC, I don't know what it's going to be, because we just don't have the ability to force people to stay in spots.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Miller.
I just want to say, I understand and agree that I wouldn't want to go against any CDC guidelines or any government guidelines that have been issued. At that rate, I think those guidelines are for now, the here and now, and I do find I would rather look at opportunities of making Arts in the Park work in some way, if that's a possibility. I understand the challenges that go into figuring out how the spacing would work and layout and everything else, but I'm kind of side with Karen. I'm not super thrilled with canceling the whole summer series.
Okay, any other Commissioner Jason Steenblock?
Just
as much me and as much as everybody, we all enjoy arts in the park. And just by what the CDC recommends and the staff recommendations from Forest Lake, I think it's sad that we have to do this, but maybe we can find something down the road a little bit and kind of go back that way. Because if you just look at all the events that have been canceled throughout Minnesota and the United States, everything is 10 people or less here or there, and so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramseth.
I think that it would be difficult to keep the right spacing. If people are really interested, a lot of people could come out. It would be difficult to space people appropriately. And you're looking at a situation of telling some people to go away. I don't see how it's really feasible to abide by the guidelines that are established with social distancing and people coming and going from the event and passing right next to each other. How they would we could keep that in abiding by the rules and keeping people safe.
Thank you. Any other? Commissioner Gary?
Well, I guess one of the things that I did last night, and I was just kind of curious about this as I thought about it, is I went down to the park and kind of walked around. And, obviously I have an advantage because I spent some time looking at it and, kind of making benchmarks in my own mind. But, to me, it seemed like in that grassy circled area in front of the bandstand, that a person could go in and basically quadrant it off. So you'd have, points every 6 feet or 10 feet, maybe you figure that a husband and wife are going to sit together. So maybe you end up with spacing pegs every 10 feet apart. That way, then, you have couples that are going to be sitting together with a spot that, just much like when you go to Home Depot or Menards or whatever else, they got places for you to stand. And you could set up your sitting that way. You also could, the grassy spot to the right of the band shell, you could do some some spacing there. I even thought that you could do two bands in a night. The band shell is big enough that one could set up while the other was still playing. A person could even, I was kind of looking at two-way traffic and one side of vendors. If you want to even set vendors up, you could, I think I figured you could have about, maybe 33 different spots for people. And then, having them set up only on one side of the sidewalk. So this way you've got plenty of space for people to pass. And, it's a logistics thing that would be a lot easier if we had a map and could kind of figure it out. But I think that, the guidelines we get from the CDC and from, the state, don't really say to cancel, but maybe to work within those particular guidelines and work with what they will give us to have some sort of an event. I mean, it would be just, I think, tragic if you just spent the whole summer just sitting around twiddling your thumbs.
All right. Any other comments from commissioners? Just to kind of circle back on a couple comments or feedback that I heard. I think the logistics piece, there's a planning piece to this. There's a resource piece to this. There's a public health piece to this. And I think, I feel like just in the last few days, because the stay-at-home order is lifted, I feel like everyone thinks that they're free and there's nothing to do with COVID anymore, just given what I've seen and questions that I've received and everything. So I think we still do need to be cognizant of the public health piece to this. And it really is going to be a question of what the city of Forest Lake is comfortable with in providing that to allow for the social distancing and spacing and making Lakeside Memorial Park a predictable event, I think would be a very large challenge. I'm not saying that it couldn't be done, but the amount of resources to limit the flow of traffic, you know, kind of control the environment of, you know, here's your spot to sit for the concert, but you can't go anywhere else except the bathroom. I think there would be some pretty heavy restrictions that would need to be in place. And that's all assuming we're still under executive orders similar to the current one right now. So I do think that there is, you know, Governor Walz talks a lot about having events that are predictable or environments and unpredictable environments. And the more unpredictable the environment is, the bigger the challenge that will be for the event. So with that, I didn't come up with a full list of what the contingency plan might look like, but I feel like Arts in the Park has been built up to be a pretty good community event that people enjoy. Good Neighbor Days in Hugo's canceled. There's events canceled in Stillwater, and really not much in White Bear Lake until August. So, you know, we have hundreds of people coming to Arts in the Park already. And, you know, could we be up against even more people coming if we're the only event happening in the community? So really, I think the contingency plan would look at other smaller events, maybe 50 people at the most, and maybe at different parks throughout the community to spread out the location sites so that we aren't all congregating in one location. So I think that as part of my staff recommendation, again, it's not to just sit back and do nothing for the summer here in Forest Lake, but utilizing the resources we have. You know, we're either going to put the resources towards planning Arts in the Park, which may or may not happen in August or September or whatever months, or potentially using those resources to do things that we know we can do safely in a predictable environment. So just clarification on the staff memo and recommendation on the contingency plan.
Well, Jamie, would it be wise maybe just to, you know, make a blanket statement, say Arts in the Park is canceled, but instead we're going to be having events at you know, surrounding little parks, and maybe have a food truck there, maybe have face painting or whatever else, so that you can you know, forget about, you know, get Arts in the Park out of your mind for the summer, but at the same time you offer a contingency plan if we're going to have these other smaller events at surrounding parks, and there'll be 8 different parks, 8 different weeks or something of that nature.
Something, yeah, I think that's a good summary of what we could focus our on. Of here's what is available to do in July and August, and it's going to look different. Maybe as part of our contingency plan, we plan one event, or maybe one concert, I should say, so that we're ready with that. If we get the green light, and maybe it's September and we can have a big event, or maybe it's October and we could then make those plans for just one large concert in the park, or, you know, something like that. But to run multiple weeks of large group gatherings in just, you know, however many weeks from now, it's just, I think there's a lot of unknowns, and the planning piece to that of, you know, contracts and getting performers lined up. One of the questions from our last meeting in May 5th was, what would September look like? I think September would definitely be an option. A couple of the groups I've reached out to couldn't commit to September. They said they would be interested once we all know more, because they just can't plan out that far right now. So, you know, Arts in the Park's never in September to begin with, but as things change, do we look at Arts in the Park fall version 2020 or something where it's a short month of September and it's just its own new little package of, okay, we found out April 1st that we can move forward with these things. Here's our plan that we're going to deliver to the city. So those are just some examples, but I know there's just so many uncertainties around these large community events and when they'll be allowed to take place.
Jamie, could I ask if anyone did listen to the governor today? I wasn't home. If he was on at all, I don't know. But so if someone did, I'd appreciate getting a little update. But I know that the religious community are very, very strongly recommending that they allow people to go to their house of worship And supposedly there was going to be some movement on that. So again, I'm just thinking in my mind, you know, how much movement will there be? And could you split it and say, you know, June was bad enough, but now July, but we could maybe still plan on August? I mean, people are really, really getting tired, the healthy people, of staying home. And when they hear 80% are from a certain segment, that makes it hard for them to follow guidelines. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen is they're going to get so angry that the guidelines are going to be out the window, and who knows where people will go. But would it be possible? Because if you're talking about 50 people at an event here or there, that's too much for right now. So as I said before, I'll try my best, but I can't even imagine if we're going to follow these guidelines and they don't change, what we can do. 10 people is not a lot of people.
Terry?
I wonder, I guess from my perspective, we could argue on both sides of things, and I would be interested. And again, I don't know what we would do right now either, because I haven't had an opportunity to think about it, but I feel like if I had an opportunity to think about it and think differently as to how we would engage the community, I bet all of us could come up with something, but I would be interested in as well, and you've seen me do it with all the other events, is explaining to the community that based on, you know, the Minnesota Department of Health and the federal CDC recommendations, we are canceling Arts in the Park. Again, we could argue both sides of that, but what we would like to know, community, is staying within those guidelines. What types of things would you like to see or do for an alternative summer events, and see what we get from the community and spend some time brainstorming as well, because we may potentially get some things out of that. I mean, if the reality is we have to think differently, I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to know what solicit the community and see what they would come up with, because I don't think it's we're canceling Arts in the Park, summer's closed. I think it's based on what's happening right now. Arts in the Parks is canceled, and we'll be looking at offering alternative summer activities that adhere to the guidelines. What types of activities or things would you be thinking about, community members, and see what we get there? Because I mean, I agree with Tim Gary in that we can't just say it's done, but I don't know what the alternatives are yet. I need time. But
Yeah, and I guess just a quick thought on that is I think there's a couple things too. We have vendors that are looking for business. We have food trucks who are looking for opportunities, and we have entertainers who have been out of work for months. So we also have a community that's really looking forward to getting out and being active this summer. So I haven't done a full brainstorm, and I'm not saying that these are things to think about, but just some feedback we've had over the years is how do we engage more local bands, smaller groups that are more Forest Lake bound. I mean, we get probably 30 or more inquiries every year to be as a part of Arts in the Park. So what if we can do an afternoon session that might attract a senior population, a certain band or group that they might be interested in? It's a small group setting, the limited time, and it's outside. That's just an example of how we could potentially rethink 2020 during a global pandemic to still target different groups of people, but we could have registration online that we know this group is going to only allow this band at this time at this park is 50 people. You have to RSVP and you're going to get a wristband, and that's all that we can allow. And it's really for the purpose of the entertainment, and we can allow some food trucks on site. I'm not saying that's the answer, but that's just, I think given the current status, I think there's a lot of options to work with what we know we're working with, which I do think social distancing and some of those requirements are going to stick around for a while. Jason?
you're muted.
Actually, along with the food truck idea, and that might be one idea, is we say 3 or 4 different parks and see if 2 food trucks might want to go to each park, and a family could go out there and social distance and have a little bite to eat in a picnic area that way. That might be an idea. But,
Yeah, that's nice.
Betty?
Hi. So it feels like we're not as far apart as it sounds like, right? I think I was hearing agreement that Arts in the Park, as it has been, may not work, but we're all interested in doing something and coming up with some good ideas that follow the guidelines, but still allow our community kind of get out and about. Is that so? Could we not vote on just canceling Arts in the Park without also adding on, but we'll look at those other opportunities for the rest of the summer? Something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of the recommendation that I have from a staff perspective, is just that if we cancel July and August and Arts in the Park and all of the elements as we know it, a key part of it is that we would come up with a contingency plan and deliver something to the community. Maybe, like I said, we don't know what that is going to look like, but have a brainstorm session and say, you know, what do we know in a week from now, and how does that shape what we can or can't do? And if somebody said July 15th, large community events are on full steam ahead from the state and the CDC and Department of Health, you know, I think we could pull together some concerts in the park pretty quickly. You know, we just don't know when we're going to get that green light. So do we focus some efforts on creating some different opportunities right now that we know we can deliver safely in the community to get people out and doing some activities? And then as soon as we get some notification that direction otherwise, then we can plan for that. And then we would still have, you know, September and even October to put on some larger community events. So I guess I think that's a key part of it, is we need to still have things to do in the community, whether it's working with somebody to get some paddleboard rentals, you know, down at the lake. That's social distancing. That's something we can do in limited groups. We can do that safely. We can do probably some small concerts like pocket parks and performances that way. So those are just a couple ideas. And again, we'd have to have a brainstorm session on that. Terry?
I'm going to make a motion that we cancel the remainder of Arts in the Park for July and August, and spend the June 16th meeting to develop a contingency plan on other program and activities for the summer that align with whatever the CDC and state requirements are at that time.
I second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion?
I'm not sure that I'm completely ready to give up August. I could buy July, but I'm not sure. I think that Governor Walz is going to start feeling pressure from bars and restaurants and the salons, the beauty shops and things like this. And I think the religious community is going to put some serious heat on them. So I would go along with July, but I'm not ready to give up on August.
June 16th sounds like a long time away at this point for if we're going to be coming up with events that we want to hold in July and August. So we might want to have a meeting, an interim meeting.
So are you thinking
yeah, I was just going to say that would be a good point of hopefully finalizing some plans and work together in small groups or have a brainstorming session so that we're ready by June 16th.
Yeah, we could do a couple of things. We have the activities subgroup that could meet between now and before the June 16th meeting, and then bring forward a recommendation of alternatives there. And then we could also discuss brainstorming additional ideas if you guys have them. The only reason why I threw in June 16th is because of the quorum issue. If we went back to the subcommittee, that is the, I don't have my list here in front of me, but we've got the one subcommittee that is activities. They met and brainstormed some ideas, there wouldn't be a quorum, so we could do it before June 16th as well. So, but we have a motion on the floor, and I haven't heard, I hate to say it, any other discussion, or do we want to vote on it? Or
If with a motion in a second, if there's no more discussion, we
we have to vote?
Okay, so I'll do a roll call. Terry Steenblack,
Aye.
Jason Steenblack,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller. You're on mute.
Nay.
Karen Moorhead,
No,
Betty Geyer,
Yay.
Tim Gary.
No.
All right. So motion carries. From there, I can get together with the commission group that plans the community events, and we can start regrouping. And I think it's important that maybe the part of the contingency plan is putting together what could a mini event or something look like for August, if that's something that, Tim wasn't ready to give up August. So maybe we're just prepared with that as part of the contingency plan. But from a planning perspective, we can move forward and talk about that in the contingency plan. So with that, let me get to the next item here.
So the next item is the facility use for COVID-19, and that's the restroom facilities at the parks.
Yep, let me just grab that and I'll share my screen here in a second. Okay, give me 1 second here and I'll do the screen share. Okay. So before you tonight, just another COVID-19 related conversation, looking for some action tonight. So right now our park facilities are open and available for the use by the public. We do have some restrictions in place for our different amenities and facilities that we have. Again, I highlighted the safely reopening Minnesota's economy executive order that we're currently under right now. And again, it reminds us that no groups of more than 10 people are allowed. You need to limit your social interactions, protect public health. And then the key thing with this is there's the Minnesota Department of Health has the outdoor recreation guidelines that we currently need to follow. So some of these items listed here, it does not include allowing facilities to be used for more than 10 people. Again, is our current order that we need to follow. So I just highlighted some of the, I really feel like in the last 2 days or even the last 24 hours since the state home order has been lifted, people are really looking to get out, and I've had a lot of calls about playgrounds being opened, how people can use the parks, can they gather there with 3 people, with 50 people. So just need to provide some guidance to the community on what this means as we move forward. And this is ever changing. Like, we don't know what could happen with updates tomorrow or the next day. So as we navigate through this, I just thought that it'd be helpful that, I know the city is following executive orders. So just looking for some action tonight so we can let the public know what's allowed or what's not allowed. Can I have 20 people rent the gazebo tomorrow? If the executive order tomorrow still says 10 people or less, we would not authorize that. So just looking to, I recommend that we only authorize the use of the City of Forest Lake Park facilities that are in compliance with all emergency executive orders. And with that, I'll look for any discussion.
afraid I'm a negative nanny again here. I just am in awe that public facilities as large as what we have, that people aren't allowed to make their own decision as far as social distancing, bringing their sanitizers, sanitizing things, trying the best that they can to make sure that they're thinking of others. But yet the onus is put upon them that if they do some of these things outside of the recommendation, that they're actually putting someone in harm's way. And I just get sad when I think that we have to not allow playgrounds for a group, mom and kids or whatever. So, I'm sorry, I'm just not quite into all of this recommendation in Minnesota when we have limited numbers of people that are affected, and all of the ones that we have, or at least 80% of them are in one area. So we're prohibiting an awful lot of people of fresh air and fun with their family because of that possibility. That and I just again say, and I won't really belabor this because I could go on and on for hours about this, but I won't. I'll just say that this is how I feel about it. I think that we have to keep our freedoms along with our precautions. And so my new mantra is stay safe and stay free. So on that, I'll just listen to what other people think and go make a decision after that.
Thank you. And just for one quick point of clarification, this agenda item, there is one more agenda item about reopening parks, which we'll talk further about bathrooms and playgrounds next on the reopening plan for that.
So what are we talking about opening here?
So this would be facilities. So can baseball fields be used by a team right now? Executive orders right now would say only it's not allowed in the current executive order. So if people are coming to me and asking if their team can practice or if they can play a game, we need to provide some statement to the community on how we are moving forward in this. I have a gazebo reservation request for June 13th, and I don't know if I should authorize it on behalf of the city if this current executive order still stands on June 13th, where it should only be 10 people or less. And so I just, need some guidance to address the community on how to use certain facilities. So right now on basketball courts, for example, we had originally put a restriction in place that they can be used, but only with small groups of people from your household. Well, that's changed now. Now they can be used with, groups of 10 or less, even if you're from different households. So as these executive orders are changing almost on a daily or weekly basis, I think just having something to use as guidance for the city of Forest Lake on how we make decisions on our park facilities. Pickleball courts, for example, is another one. Right now, only the people allowed within the playing pickleball are allowed. And I think that would still hold true to the executive order, that we're in compliance. So it's just looking for some guidance on how we can approve or not approve certain park facility requests where we're having to authorize the use of facilities. If people want to continue to use the picnic shelters and the gazebo at their own free will when they're at the park, that's different. We're not going to necessarily enforce that, but we're going to encourage the guidelines by the state. But if we're authorizing a picnic shelter for a birthday party for 20 people, should we do that or not? Tim Miller.
Yeah, on this one, I agree with you that we should follow the recommendations. And on the last one, I think we should follow the guidelines set forth by the governor. I think that just keeps a level of consistency. My only concern with the last topic was that we don't know what the guidelines are going to be in July and August. So that's why I was against that one. But this one, I absolutely agree. We should utilize, the guidelines that are in place for us and follow that. So I would have no problem with that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So Jamie, the application you have now is for 20 people?
I don't know the quantity of people yet. That's not a question we asked, but I did reach out to this group because based on the description provided, I feel as if it's going to be more than 10 people based on what the private event description was. So
And just for a point of information, so let's say that you've got, you know, so you have a family, you know, let's say they have 5 kids, and or, you know, so you got a mom and a dad that are in their 50s, you got sons and daughters that are in their 30s, and they got children, you know, so it maybe end up with 20 people who are all related and see each other on a weekly or twice a week or twice a month basis. Is the government or the governor's order then says that even though there are 20 related people who see each other on a frequent basis, they can't meet? You can't have a group bigger than 10?
So the current government order would not comply with the current orders from the state of Minnesota. The current orders
Really?
only allow for groups of 10 or less from different households. So if 20 people all lived in the same household, they all lived together, that would be in compliance. Yeah. But if 10 people or less from different households is the current executive order for the state.
Interesting.
So if a little league person comes up, coach, and he's going to bring out 12 people, not asking, there's just fields that are sitting there, and he brings his little team out there to play, maybe they're 9, 7, 8, I don't know what age they'd be. Are we going to have police go and shoo them off, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not the police department, but I know that I believe if, you know, enforcement's a different category. I think educating groups of people on what the executive orders are so they know to be in compliance is the approach I believe that they would take. So the enforcement piece is tricky, but to that example, Karen, that the city doesn't know about that and we didn't authorize it. So that individual group of people would be not compliant and they would be the ones at risk with not following executive orders, and there would be no connection to the city with an application form that we approved and collected fees from them saying we allowed them to use the facility.
Okay.
Jamie, I would assume that there are no scheduled team events, league events at this point. So the fact that group would get together there, I don't know who that would be, because if they don't have a league to play in, it'll just perhaps be a neighborhood group of 10 people get together and play some ball. That would be acceptable, and well, I guess that's it. So I don't think there are any leagues that are going to be in play this summer.
You're correct.
At this point.
The statement of currently there are no like organized teams playing. However, Governor Walz, I believe, is supposed to do an update on the youth sports and what that's going to look like for this year. So I've had organized baseball teams and associations contact us and say, you know, when can we use the city's facilities? When can we use the fields for games and practices? And right now, I would, you know, previously up until yesterday, we were in a stay-at-home order. Now we're, you know, the state's allowing 10 people or less. And clearly it's written in his executive order that does not include youth sports. Like that's not allowed right now. So if tomorrow he comes out and says, here's the plan for youth sports, they can start practices, they need to have 13 people on the field, they have to follow this X, Y, and Z guideline. Well, then tomorrow, can we align our facility use with that executive order? And so if we follow executive orders and take that stance, as executive orders change or added, that's going to affect our use of our facilities. So can people be out at Coolen Park and Fenway Park and Schilling Park right now? No, I would say no, because it's not allowed in the executive order. If that changes tomorrow and it's authorized by the state, then this is just saying that we would then authorize that and let them use the fields. So it's really just a way to drive our decisions and make it clear so that there's consistency in what we're doing and why we're doing it. Does that help clarify? Okay, Terry?
Does it make, yeah, I am unmuted. Does it make sense to make a motion that that the decisions related to the facility use align with the executive order and give you the discretion to be able to do that, so that we don't have to meet and revisit it. And potentially, if the executive order changes and we have to get back together to make that decision, then we've maybe inadvertently created a gap between when things can happen. And so I'm just for the sake of discussion, I'm going to throw out a motion to allow staff to make decisions on the use of the facilities that align with the executive order and the CDC recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay.
So a second with Commissioner Ramseth.
Yes.
Okay.
This discussion, Tim?
So, okay, so my question would be though, so let's say that we have an uptick in the number of cases and they go backwards. And so now all of a sudden we're shelter in place again. And then you've had people, make arrangements for these shelters and things, and then you're going to go backwards on it. And now you have to cut back checks and whatever else. I'm almost to the point of saying maybe you until there's a bigger group, because I guess I just see Pandora's box. If we start having 20 people and it becomes 40 or 50, granted, the city's not, it's not the city's problem at that point. But, if all of a sudden now you got 40 or 50 rather than 20, and then you have an enforcement, it just looks like it's going to get real messy.
It's already real messy, don't you think, Tim?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, you can't go to a state park, but you can go to a national park, which is just
Go to Walmart, but you can't go to church.
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we're off the beat a little bit. I guess I would almost be more in agreement of this one than the next one and the last one, because I know the city well enough to know that they're not going to take any chances of being taken to task or to be sued or to whatever if something comes up and isn't in the guidelines and we have taken money to allow that. And so if it's just using our facilities, and I can still have my little hopeful mind that there are some people that may go out in the park and do what they're going to do without telling anybody, I can see that more than, and I can see this one more, because then it's not us giving permission, but it's not us taking away their right to go and do something if they choose to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, oh wait.
Roll
Jamie,
call.
yeah,
Terry Steenblack,
aye.
Jason Steenblack,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Aye.
Betty Geyer,
Aye.
Tim Gary.
All right.
All right. Let's get to the next item here. Just give me 1 second here.
Okay, so the next item is park open/reopen plan, right?
Yes,
And is that the one that starts on page?
36.
Okay,
And I'll share my screen again here. All right, so before you is a staff memo with a park reopen plan. And I really didn't know what to call it because parks really we had a weird, obviously an interesting year with an early spring, and then we had COVID-19. So parks opened a lot earlier than we thought, just because people were looking for space to get out and enjoy the green space. So typically though, typically this is kind of the time of the year where we're really getting bathrooms opened up and facilities ready for the season. So things like the bathrooms at Lakeside Memorial Park, we have a few parks that get portables delivered, and just kind of cleaning up and making sure we're ready for the busy months of June, July, and August. So when the whole COVID-19 pandemic broke out in mid-March, we immediately closed the playgrounds that That was kind of following some recommendations from multiple sources, and also close the bathrooms. Well, sorry, the bathrooms were not open yet, but we have not made the decision to open them at this time. They're still temporarily closed and portables have not been delivered. So now's that time to, as we're starting to see things change and slowly lifting up restrictions, we're getting to nice weather, people are at the parks. One of the priorities is really, you know, trying to get those bathrooms open, but doing it safely. So, and additionally, playgrounds, you know, obviously everyone's looking forward to getting their kiddos out and using the playgrounds as well. So tonight, those are the two things that we're going to talk about for the parks plan to reopen. There is one more element I don't think we need to talk about tonight, but as we wait to see, and probably for our next meeting, there's also potentially the conversation of the public beach. I don't think that's appropriate for tonight at this time. So really focusing on bathrooms for the public and the playgrounds. So I shared with you some guidelines from the National Recreation and Park Association. Outdoor restrooms, again, they really want you to try to get those opened as quickly as you can because they promote healthy hygiene and public health. So with that, here's some of their recommendations that they brought forward. So you have to make sure you're cleaning and disinfecting regularly. You have stocked supplies for hand washing, so soap and sanitizers and things like that. So those are some of the considerations. And then furthermore, with playgrounds, obviously playgrounds are not cleaned or sanitized regularly, or if at all. So that's a concern. And there's also the challenge of social distancing. Kids obviously may not be aware of what that means depending on the age of the children, and they're just there to play and have fun. So those are some of the challenges as it's relating to public health and community spread of the COVID-19 virus. So when you're considering to reopen playgrounds, you know, just, you have to remember that, you know, that they're going to be crowded and they can easily exceed recommended guidance for gatherings. So right now, you know, 10 people is not a lot. So, you know, you're likely going to have more than 10 people. It's hard to keep the surfaces clean and disinfected, and kids just are playing and they don't know they're not cognizant during their play to not touch their face or their eyes or their mouth. So those are some of the public health concerns and why playgrounds have been closed. I've seen a lot of playgrounds open by cities across the country in the last couple of days, particularly, especially like in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area. So, you know, it's a choice that each city can make. It's not anything that's prohibited specifically in an executive order. Again, the 10 people in an area practicing social distancing is the executive order right now. Otherwise, it's up to cities on what to decide on how they handle their amenities. So with that, I put together some ideas, and I think we can be ready to move forward with getting the bathrooms open and the playgrounds open. Again, per our last conversation, that we just need to make sure we're complying with guidelines from the state, the CDC, and the Department of Health. So what you see here, Lakeside Memorial Park, obviously we have bathrooms there, and these could be cleaned at least one time a day and multiple times on weekends when staff is, park ranger staff is present and on duty. We can notify the public when they were last cleaned. We can put signage up that notes that these are high touch surfaces that may not be cleaned after each use, and not allow more than 10 individuals in the bathroom at the time. Portable restrooms, again, you just kind of opening and closing of the doors. So high touch surfaces will not be cleaned or sanitized regularly. And we also would kind of warn that use at your own risk. I believe all the porta potties will have the hand sanitizer. Hopefully that remains in there and not taken, but there should be hand sanitizer as well. The thought on the playgrounds is that we can open these, but post signs that they're not sanitized and use at your own risk. And from a city's perspective, given the current executive orders, you know, I think we should make a note that try to limit it to 10 people from different households at a time, which I think may be tricky, but hopefully people could kind of take their turn to use the playground equipment. So with that, I think it's also to remind people that, we still have a virus lingering in the community, and here are some things you need to think about, and encourage all of the guidelines from the CDC, and really leave this one up to personal choice. If you're going to use the bathrooms or not, if you're going to use the playgrounds or not, and really just recommend to be cognizant of practices that you need to take care of to be safe and help keep the community safe. So with that, my staff recommendation is listed as open the public restrooms at Lakeside Memorial Park effective Friday, May 22nd, following the reopen plan listed above. Distribute portable restrooms to the designated parks as soon as next available by the provider. And then open playgrounds effective Friday, May 22nd with the plan listed above. So with that, open to any discussion. Otherwise, looking to take action on our reopen for the bathrooms and playgrounds.
Jamie, will the rangers be trained on how to do the cleaning of the restrooms?
Yes, I actually was at the park today. We have one staff starting to just do some cleaning from the winter. Bathrooms are not open for use by any means, but we're just starting to look at what we need to do and supplies that we need. We do have hospital grade sanitation available at the park, and they would receive some training on how to properly sanitize bathrooms and other high touch surfaces.
Jamie, it might surprise you, but I'm going to make a motion on this one that we accept your recommendation for opening the bathrooms and the playgrounds. It finally allows somebody like a parent to decide what they want to do. And, I'm very, very thrilled to see how you've written it up. I think that does make them safe and yet free.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll let Jamie do the roll call.
Okay, Terry Steenblock,
Aye.
Jason Steenblock,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead,
Aye.
Betty Geyer,
Aye.
Tim Gary.
Aye.
All right, that was.
See, you let freedom in and it goes better.
Note to self. All right.
All right. So next on the list was just a discussion on the 2020 work plan for quarter 3 and 4.
Yes, let me just pull this up. I have the last version of the work plan. Just give me 1 second to transition here.
And then while you're pulling that up, Betty, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the work plan is just a compilation of things that came together through community feedback, and think about it as kind of like our strategic plan or our guiding principles. So we identified priorities for the 3rd and 4th quarters, and then looked at, before we take on new stuff, can we accomplish what we've got here first? And can we revisit it every meeting? That's the really quick boiled down. We can talk in more detail offline if you need it on the history and the background.
Thank you.
All right, so just with that, this is the last document, and I guess tonight, I know we try to make it a goal to at least look at this every meeting. Maybe if we just take a few minutes to look at, since we last looked at this document, June will be the last month of Q2. And I think we have some things yet that we can still do in Q2, but just wanted to at least look at this again so we can kind of be on the same page with some things, and then also start looking ahead to Q3 and Q4. If there's anything that comes to mind that you would like to tonight to think about, or you guys can send that over to me if it's not tonight. But I think we should really start looking at our Q3 and Q4 plan so we can have that finalized for our June 16th meeting. So just a couple of quick comments. Again, I didn't take the time to update this because I thought we could just go over it. We still are in this Q1, Q2. So it is a working document. Obviously we made some decisions on Arts in the Park tonight. So I think we should add to programs and events for right now. We have to look at some other alternatives for this year. But just open this up for discussion if there's anything yet. Let me just look here quick. One more thing. if there's anything else, I know we have a maintenance list we should probably get together yet for June because we're in the summer months. But if there's anything else for Q2, otherwise, just if you have any thoughts or things that come to mind for Q3 or Q4. And if it's not for tonight, at least we've looked at the document and you guys can send it over in an email so that for June 16th, I have a draft Q3, Q4 document.
Jamie, can you send this, this copy out to all of us as well? So we have an electronic copy and maybe we can look at it between now and then and see whether or not, you know, do we carry over those things on the list, or based on where we're at, would we want to reprioritize? I don't know what, I can't think of a good example that's on there right now, but maybe something that we put on Q1 and Q2, we decided that maybe we don't want to put on 3 and 4. I don't know. And maybe we do, but if you could email it to us, it would give us some time to take a look at it and think about, you know, what we would want to put on there. And then we can also look at the other documents that we put together that rolled up into this one to see if there's anything on those that gets reprioritized.
Okay, that's good feedback. At least it's a question of, you know, if we didn't get to something on Q1, Q2, does it make sense to carry that forward, or do we table that and put something different on for our goals for the Q3, Q4? So I can send this out to everybody. Does anybody else have any just comments, thoughts, things you'd like to think about for the second half of 2020?
I think this is a good time for me to ask my question. I don't know, Jamie, if you saw the report from the city where Patrick Casey had a comment in there that he didn't think Parks, Lakes, and Trails was doing very much. And I don't know if that was aimed at you or at us or if the world or what, but did you see that comment?
Nope, I didn't. If that was recent, I haven't seen anything about that.
I'd like to know exactly what he was thinking.
I can find out some more information on that.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on what we have on the list here or what we should add to the list?
One question I have is Fenwick actually came up here. And I noticed that the one container that we voted on to get moved, it's still in the same location. Do you know anything about that, Jamie?
I don't really have an update. I don't know why I know that needs to be some storage out there, and until there's a solution on that of how they can store lacrosse equipment and whatnot, I think that should be something we get figured out here as part of this agreement that we have drafted.
Because the one
on our list to figure that out.
Okay.
You mean Kathy has her hand up?
1 second here. I'm going to stop the screen share quick here. Kathy, Councilmember Byström.
I just wanted to address Karen's comment about Patrick's statement, and I think it's a little bit out of context. I think it came on the heels of a conversation that we have a really highly skilled Parks, Lakes and Trails Commission here, or Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission here, that we feel are really very underutilized in terms of their skill set in developing much more comprehensive plans and that kind of thing. And so I think his statement, again, I think was a little out of context. He was kind of agreeing with us. He just didn't say it or wasn't quoted in such a way that
That happens in a lot of cases, I know, but the way it came across, it was definitely.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was intended at all to be a slight. I think it's exactly the opposite, because it came on the heels of a conversation we had as a council about how highly skilled this team was and how amazing your ideas were, and that we really thought that you had much more to contribute than we were actually seeing at this point in time. So
thank you.
Cleared that up, because I think Mara tried.
Yeah. I know. That was an eye roll moment.
Thank you for that, because I think that triggers in my mind of what content or when this conversation may have taken place. I didn't remember that exact statement from Administrator Casey, but I know that the City Council talked about the next steps with the strategic plan, and that to Councilmember Bystrom's point, there was a lot of positive feedback, and that previous leadership or council the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission has not been given as much authority as they should have in developing a parks plan. So that is something that we should put on our Q3, Q4 docket, because I think the city council really wants the Parks Commission to be involved. And I think Administrator Casey is encouraging you guys to be a part of developing what is your vision and what's your plan for moving forward. So thank you. That was the
Yep.
background of it. So let's put that strategic planning session, creating a park vision as part of the strategic plan for the Q3, Q4 document. Because you guys get to create the vision for the Parks, Trails and Lakes for the next 10 years. Any other comments, or should we move on to updates?
Updates.
Just a brief update on the farmers market. Executive orders do allow for farmers market because it's an essential service and provides healthy foods for the community. So we are moving forward with this, and I can share with you, this was one where it's you kind of had to look at everything and try to figure out what's the best way to create a predictable environment, limiting the number of people to align with executive orders. So I did a little bit of, it took a little time to get here, but I do feel comfortable with plans to move forward with the farmers market. I'll share with you kind of my ideas. This map needs to be changed a little bit, but I can just talk you through the overall concept of how we can do this safely. First and foremost, we'd have to have it at the city center, still on Tuesday nights. And what you'll see here is the front of the city hall. So originally I was thinking of a drive-through option where people would come in here, follow the arrows, and once you're in this little shopping circle, you can drive around once or twice and stop in front of the different booths and do your transactions through the driver's side window, not leaving your vehicle. That was when we were in the stay-at-home order. Talking to vendors, there were some questions or concerns on how that would work. So given that we can have groups of 10 people or less, I'm going to keep the same space, but I am going to allow for people to do the traditional kind of shopping the market. They can come in and walk. Some of the restrictions that will be in place, no more than 10 people allowed in the shopping area. Let's just call it that for now. So people can come in, they can shop the different vendors following social distancing. Vendors will be spaced apart, and there's going to be lines, wait in line with social distancing. There's one exit, one entrance and one exit to allow control of that environment. And so people can park, whether it's over here in front of the side of the building over here, but it'll be a very controlled environment. You can see, given the natural layout of this parking lot, it's going to be easy to put a couple dividers in to just really keep it a controlled environment, allowing only 10 shoppers at once. Again, we'll encourage people to come with a list ready to be prepared to do their shopping. Really, we are going to encourage just one person per household to come do the shopping. So it's not bring your whole family to get your farmers market items. So with that, we have 7 or 8 vendors right now that are still interested in participating. A lot of fresh produce. So with that, I'm moving forward with the vendors to get everything set up, and we're looking at starting on Tuesday, June 16th as a tentative start date. And I say tentative because there are, there's a lot of other restrictions and planning that goes into it. So we're looking at June 16th to start the market. So if there's any questions on this, it's all in compliance with executive orders and creates a really safe, predictable environment for shoppers. Otherwise, if there's no questions, I can move on to the next update.
That looks good, Jean.
All right. I'll keep you posted as we navigate through that. The next update is just the facility use agreement with the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association. I did hear back from flaw on this. The one question was regarding the priority use of the fields. I'm going to share with you what was presented to the city, and I'm going to get this updated to share at our next, or on the next city council agenda. So what you'll see here, I'm just going to read it. And it's just, I think this is something that the city can be in agreement with. I think it summarized well what we all talked about. So it's priority use shall be defined as the association having the first right to book event dates for the fields during the term of this agreement. Where no event is scheduled by the association, the city may schedule events with other operators. Simultaneously scheduled events shall be allowed, providing sufficient parking and accommodations exist to meet the projected need. The city shall confirm field availability with the association prior to scheduling any city scheduled events on the fields. Association shall not charge or collect fees from any users of the fields or athletic complex for city scheduled events. City agrees to repair, replace, or compensate the association for any damage or excessive cleanup costs at the athletic complex related to use by the city. Now, just make a note that the last sentence is italicized, as we, from the city perspective, we'll just modify that a little bit. Being that it's our complex, you know, we wouldn't pay the association for any repairs, but we'll just reword that so it's conveys the same message that the association's really not held liable for any damages or repairs from city sponsored events. So this is going to city council at their next regular meeting, and we should know more hopefully tomorrow if we'll be able to move forward with the season. So we'll be moving forward on this.
Say, Jamie.
Yes.
Okay, so we had talked at one point in time, maybe the last meeting, about in the event there was a conflict. So you have a ball tournament that gets rained out on Sunday, so they've got to make their final games up on Monday, and the event and the field has been scheduled by something for the city for Monday night. Were we still giving the association then priority on that kind of a conflict?
I think so, and I think we're really, you know, from able to work with them on this. I think it's a partnership, and I think we'll be able to work together in communicating to make sure that everyone's accommodated as best as we can.
But shouldn't we have that in that writing, in that written document there, just so everybody understands it's the association has priority over other people in the event there's a weather-related conflict?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty minor, looking at this again. I think that if we added that, they wouldn't have any issues with something like that. I mean, it's in their favor, so.
I guess it's always good to have paperwork, so that way friends stay friends. We don't have, you know, some sort of situation where, well, you said, he said, they said, no, this is it. You know, we have a conflict, go to the paperwork, and there we are.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll get that added.
I think that's a good point, Tim. And I was going to ask that question because I think on the other side, when people, and I don't know how many we'll have from the city, maybe a lot, maybe no one, but when they do call, would it be prudent for the city to say, you know, yes, you have that scheduled unless there is a tournament, whatever, so that the people don't hear at the last minute, oh, by the way, there's a tournament and you're out. Yep.
No, absolutely. I mean, that should almost, if they're signing a contract for the use of that facility, I think that should be in print on the contract, and lets them know that, you know, you have this, provided there's not a weather related conflict.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you. I can get that added. Any other comments on that?
No, just as long as you are making the change, I'm glad to hear you're making the change, because if it's our facility or the city's facility compensating them, I don't know what that would look like. So I'm glad you're making that change.
Sounds good. All right, so we'll move on to our Castlewood Golf Course update, and I will just take a minute to, we had somebody else join our call. So I'll introduce to you guys our manager of Castlewood Golf Course. It's Zach Sigelkow. Is that correct?
Sigelkow. Sigel like wiggle and co like toe. That's what my grandfather always said.
All right.
Could
So
you do
he's,
that one
I'm
more
really
time?
just, I'm gonna let Zach run this one. He shared some information that I did include in this staff memo, so I hope you had a chance to look over of that. But Zach, this is just really a time to introduce you to our Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, and just give a brief update on the course operations so far and any other information you want to share with them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Zach.
Great. Well, guys, thank you for letting me crash your call here. Appreciate your time this evening. As the weather has been pretty favorable for us, we've had a pretty smooth opening weather-wise. Otherwise, there's been a lot of accommodations we've had to make. Obviously, with COVID and us being a new management team, a little background on that. I've been with our management team, Foursome Golf Management, for 6 years now. We operate 2 other courses in St. Paul, Como and Phelan. Spent a majority of my time down here at Como. And we were really, really excited about this opportunity to, try and grow this course and obviously, grow our business a little bit too. But for the most part, we've had a really smooth transition. And with that, I think that's a kudos to all the community members and all the golfers and of course the city of Forest Lake for, letting us come in and expedite a lot of things, getting golf carts right away, getting a website, a phone number, just really basic things, just run straight through so we can start communicating with those returning golfers and trying to, clarify a lot of things that were up in the air, including, green fees, league fees, tournaments. And then you add the COVID in that, Governor Walz suspended tournament and league play there in the initial order. So we're like, okay, as long as we can be open, we'll be open, but we need the golfers to work with us. And we were really, really grateful and very, very lucky for their understanding of our situation coming in and just saying, hey, we know there's going to be some differences and some new things going on, but as long as you just let us keep the course open, hopefully things will run their course. And actually recently Governor Walz and the MGA are allowing tournaments and league play to start, which has been really great. We've got a really good response so far from returning golfers. And I think that's really, really great. But along with that, I'll just speak on some of our COVID accommodations. A lot of you may be familiar with it already, but for those who aren't, we've been trying to just space out the amount of people at the course at one time and keep the number one priority, customer and staff safety. Sure, the integrity of the game and playing golf the right way is always important, but keeping tee times instead of 8 minutes apart, we've spaced it down to 10 minutes apart. So there's less golfers on the course and there's more space between groups. And then with that, we're allowing motorized golf carts on the course, but it's only one rider per cart unless you're living together. So husband, wife, children, spouses, anything like that, roommates, they just have to verbalize that with us, and then we enforce that. And then following each use, we've really trained our staff to be on top of it with disinfecting and cleaning the cart, which adds to a little bit of the day-to-day tasks for those staff, because they're usually pretty accustomed to just checking in the golfer, greeting them when they come in after their round, and then just leaving it. So there's a lot more hands-on activity with the golfer, not letting them touch a bunch of stuff inside the cart when it's already been sanitized. So we're trying to reiterate and communicate our policy. Then with that, push carts and other movable things on the course, we always disinfect them and clean them. But on the course itself, when we talk about the integrity of the game, we've had a couple folks speak up with some constructive criticism, but I'd say 98% of the people have been absolutely understanding. Instead of letting the ball roll into the hole, we've set up PVC pipes that stick up over the hole. So when you putt it, the ball actually deflects off the pipe. And that's what counts as a stroke, or what counts as letting the ball go in the hole. We've actually ordered up this really cool device, and we're looking forward to when it comes, we can put out the video. on Facebook and our website, but it's actually going to allow the ball to go fully inside the hole, but there's a little lever that sticks out on the golf pin itself. So then you can lift it up with your putter, lift up the lever, and it brings the bottom of the cup to the surface of the green and the ball rolls off. So it's kind of slick, and I think it'll be a good way to keep everybody safe. But we've been really fortunate to have people come back and understand, we're a new management team. There's going to be a few differences here and there, but for the most part, we've really enjoyed working with everybody. And I just want to thank you guys again for letting us onto the course and letting us into the city.
Thank
You
you.
guys have any questions or anything, I'm more than happy to field a few.
One, Zach, welcome aboard. I'll have to practice your last name. You went pretty fast about how to associate it with something, but we'll get it. I'm just wondering if you're going to continue to have the youth leagues and work with the young people as that has been done in the past.
Absolutely. That's one of our number one priorities. And we're in the final stages of putting out some communications on that. We were just kind of in lieu with the whole distance learning and who's on what schedule, because we know kids are home, but we don't want them out of the house, Tuesday or Monday morning at 9 a.m. when they should be, on the books. So we've been trying to make sure that we're accommodating that way and not making too many parents upset and letting the kids come on out at a good time. So we're following the dates on that and following what the area schools are doing. But yeah, that is one thing we do intend on continuing and growing.
Good. Thank you.
I saw Kathy's hand pop up there.
Hi, Zach. I live across the street, as you well know, so have an opportunity to observe, as I have for years and years and years. We've lived here for a long, long time, and we've seen this course ebb and flow. And I want to share with this team, since they provide some oversight to the work that's happening there, that you guys are just doing an outstanding job, and doing an outstanding job under some very unusual circumstances. And it's really evident and very obvious. And it's just, I think COVID has been good for golf, actually, with the limited recreation opportunities. I've seen the course busier at times than I've seen it in a long time. And I also want to just let you know that my husband really likes that PVC pipe sticking up, because he's taken quite a few strokes off of his game. So,
I'm the same way. That's great. We'll leave him in.
Sounds good to me.
So just keep up the good work. It's been fun to watch it evolve this year when we weren't quite sure what direction it was headed. So yeah, your crew is doing a great job. So
thank you. We really appreciate hearing that, and you guys have been great. So we really appreciate you working with us on a lot of these changes, and we're just glad to see the course filling in a little bit as we got the word out with a new website and a new phone number and a new Facebook. That's a really difficult obstacle, considering everybody's got the phone number in their phone already, and it's probably been that way for 20 years. So as we kind of start getting that out organically, we've seen some more play, but Jamie was really instrumental in setting us up with a lot of those returning members and just a lot of folks around the area. So we're really happy that the word's finally getting out and that the course is filling up.
Terry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to comment that the website is beautiful and it's really professional looking, which I think is a nice draw for those outside the community. I love the fact that we also have a nice detailed financial report, because I know we had some targets that we had to meet as part of the contract and agreement, but it's really, really nice to see the transparency and see the financial side of things so clearly and easily to read. So thank you on those two fronts as well. I'm not a golfer, but I drive by it and I do see people there and it looks great, but I again love the website and I love having the financials available to us. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah, that website was pretty fun to put together because it's a fresh start and we're able to just hear some soft feedback from folks right away. Like, what do you want to see? Well, I want to be able to book and pay for a tea time online. And then it worked out really neat. Well, not neat, I shouldn't say that. But with the COVID stuff, we had to do that. We have to make these prepayments and pre-bookings and stuff. And with that little piece of feedback, it, you know, really jump-started and kick-started our journey into starting the accommodations lists. And yeah, we've been trying to be as transparent as possible. This data is so important to the commission, to us, and to the community. Justifying the use and showing that people really do care about the course is something that's important to us, and we try and let that reflect in the numbers as much as possible.
Zach, can you just take a minute and talk a little bit about some of the specials you've run and how that's helped at the course, or what you're seeing as a result of that? I think that's something that this commission, we haven't seen before at the course, and I think it's unique and different. And I think if you can just take a minute and just talk about what you guys are doing, analyzing the days of the week, the hours of when people are golfing and whatnot. If you want to just speak to that and see how that's going.
Yeah, it's something we try and get really creative with, and it's all data driven. So for the first 2 weeks of operation, we didn't put out any daily deals. But what we have started to do as we start to learn, okay, these are going to be the days where people aren't coming out as much. These are the times. And I think I've sent this out and you guys might be able to reference it otherwise. But what we see is like early mornings and mid-afternoons before people get off work traditionally, a little bit slower. So we're able to do on the back end of our software is discount tee times and make them available. We can actually make it online only to try and build our customer database and gather some email addresses to get the word out. That was successful right away. We can do it through Facebook and in the shop itself. And we actually did a city only special, which was redeemed, I think about 10, 15 times, which was awesome. And that's reflected in the year-to-date and weekly reports as special tea time. We can break it down a little bit more on our end if we really dig into it, but for the most part, it's easiest just to track it as special tea time. But yeah, what we're trying to do is just show we've got a hidden gem out here. This is an awesome course and a really pretty and quiet scene. And so if we can start to get, you know, the surrounding communities, get into the metro a little bit, you know, pull like, hey, this is a really reasonable course. You know, my dad always had this saying, you don't want to be the most expensive in town, but you also don't want to be the cheapest. And we're providing a really, really good quality course condition at a reasonable rate. And I think people are starting to realize that, and we're seeing some new customers, and then those guys are returning when we put out those deals. And it's really fun to track and grow, especially with the new Facebook page, because there's a little bit of a correlation in likes and follows based off of when we're putting these dates out. And then what we're seeing right now in St. Paul is we usually discount every day, depending on who's on the sheet and how many folks we have. But what's going on in St. Paul is there's just so many more people down here who are trying to golf, and we haven't had the discount because they're just booking. And eventually, if we can get to that point in Castle, that'd be great, where you don't have to discount and the tee sheets are full. And I think that's a testament to what our team has done over the last, 4 to 5, 6 years, building a loyal database on Facebook, Twitter, email blasts, all these little things. And if we can get the ball rolling with that, we'll be seeing some really good days over at the Rock.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. Any other questions? I'll wrap up that conversation. Foursome Golf Management team has been fantastic to work with. I've been very impressed with the quick turnaround, how quickly and efficiently they've been able to secure equipment, staff, all the resources needed, and extremely impressed from what I've seen so far. So thank you to Zach and the whole Foursome Golf Management team. I think it's a great partnership, and I'm excited to continue on this journey with them and see what we can accomplish. So thank you also for taking your time tonight to join us and introduce yourself to the team.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie,
Thanks. Take care.
Jamie, thanks to you as well. I mean, this was a tough issue, and it had emotional strings attached to it and everything else. And you really persevered and stuck through it and worked to find us a good partner. So thank you to you.
You're welcome. It's nice to see people out there, and it makes me feel good to know that people are out enjoying, and I get to try. I'm gonna hit the course on Friday, so it'll be my first time golfing Castlewood. So I'll report back my next staff update. So thank you.
You have to let us know what you think of the PVC pipes too. If it's helping you, if you want something else, you gotta let us know.
I'll let you know, and I'll take all the help I can get.
All
Then they
right.
have to fill in some of the water holes.
Yeah, you're gonna have some extra balls over the weekend.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, so next it's any updates from commissioners. I would just provide an update. There was a little back and forth this weekend on Forest Lake happenings about the garbage out at Lakeside Park. And I took it as an opportunity to provide a little bit of education that we do have staff out there. But there will be times when depending upon when you go there, the bins may or may not be full, but we have other larger bins there that people can use both for trash and recycling. But just sharing that as I think I wasn't sure that the community understood that there is still some staffing that is happening out there, and quite frankly that we all individually as users have some skin in the game as well to help play our part to keep it clean.
Yeah, just one quick, thank you for providing that. Just one quick additional comment on that, the garbage at the park. But during the whole stay-at-home orders and just without parks officially being opened, it was extremely difficult to understand what park use would look like and what staffing levels should be. They are limited right now due to some of the executive orders, but it was pretty eye-opening to learn how many people are taking food to go, which includes large to-go containers. We've seen boxes of pizza boxes, just larger containers instead of just a tissue or a small piece of garbage, which is our normal park use. So we've seen a lot of bigger containers trying to shove into those garbage cans. So staff is on site. We will continue to increase staffing, but we do appreciate any assistance with taking your trash with you or disposing it in an empty garbage can or the dumpster on site, just to help with limited staff at the time. But thank you for that, bringing that up.
Anybody else have any updates?
Just the beautification club that's kind of half put together for the Forest Lake area will be planting out at the Triangle Park on Friday. I think it's the 27th. Or Wednesday, the 27th, that could be. And so because the schools are closed and the FFA usually had done that, there's just a group of citizens that have kind of rallied together to do some beautifying around the city. And if you see people out there, that's who they are. And they're going to be putting the plantings in there to make that space very beautiful.
Great, thanks, Karen.
We have a motion to adjourn from anyone?
So move.
I'll second.
Can we raise our hands if we're in favor?
Yes. Yep, and then Karen Moorhead.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you.